What do you mean by there's no freedom without the frontier?
Well, what I mean by that is the very point that you're making, that for most of our republic's history, one of the geniuses of our success, whether it's domestically manifested or, as you point out, in foreign policy and warfare in World War II, is that we've had this frontier. We've literally had far more rural area than we've had urban areas. One of the things that worries me, and it's not a side swipe at people who prefer living in cities, is that as we have become more urbanized very steadily over the last century, that we are losing what is a key part of our DNA, which is that having access to rural areas, or as we are now saying in this conversation, the frontier, we're losing what it means to be an American. And therefore, two things, Hugh. First of all, those of us who live in cities or in suburbs, as I tell my colleagues at Heritage, go touch some grass. Spend some time in God's first book, whether it's mountains or bayous or something in between. Go do that. It actually does allow us to ground ourselves to something that's more important than us, and that's the concrete around us. But the second thing is swerving into public policy. Even though I'm always going to be skeptical of using federal government for bad ends, I think we ought to think in public policy how we can inspire Americans to resettle some of these rural areas. I don't think that that's necessarily answered by rural broadband, although that's a good conversation. It's actually something more meaningful, which is to say we have to revitalize Main Street in the United States if we want to revitalize the American dream.